fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy, crime, LGBT, thriller.
You have now entered the House of Mystery.
Welcome back into the House of Mystery. I'm Al Warren. Got Mr. Michael Hawley in the room, back from his
That is correct.
Big vacation.
Oh, yeah, Dominican Republic. That is absolutely right.
Wow.
My brain is still there in the lazy river.
Why did they even let you come back in? How did you get
I
back?
have no idea. You know, I had a Canadian accent and everything, and I just still amazed me. It's all about, you know, it didn't work.
They said just keep going. Shut up.
That's right.
We've had enough of you.
Oh, not him.
Well, anyway, so let's just go right on. We've got a returning guest, and he's got a second book in a series. And the book is called The Vatican Deal. It's a Marty and Bo thriller, and it's book 2. So, Michael Balter, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Al. I appreciate it.
Nice speaking with you.
Yes, thank you. Nice to meet you, Michael.
You too.
Well, we'll see if you say that later. So, listen, we had you on for book 1, I should say, not part 1, but book 1, Chasing Money, and that did really well. And that did so well. Like, you were up for awards, right, and everybody, and it won. And did that sort of get in the way when you're doing a follow-up like that? Was that on your mind, or did you think about that at all?
Not really. I mean, winning the awards was both very affirming, and it kind of, you know, swelled my head a little. Made me feel like, oh, maybe this thing I'm doing in my retirement actually is a good thing. So, you know, I thought I'd write a book for friends and family, and it turned out to be very successful. So yes, it was a good thing.
So both you guys should do it like I do with my books. They don't do well, so then you're all set. See what I'm saying?
That's perfect.
You gotta work. You gotta follow me.
I think I want to let's make that our goal for the Vatican Deal. I hope it's not a good book.
Yeah, don't buy this book.
Don't buy this book. It's just god awful.
Yeah, go out and buy something Michael Hawley wrote. He needs the money.
Right.
You know, he's broke. You know, he's just been to Dominican.
Because the basket weaving just didn't kick in. I'm telling you.
Right. Yeah, I was actually very I was incredibly happy with the way Chasing Money worked out. It became an Amazon bestseller, which is very. In fact, it was an Amazon bestseller in like 3 separate categories, which is kind of cool.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah, and then I was visiting my mom, who is no longer with us. She's 92. She was 92, and I was, and we were actually talking about, you know, the book had come out about 2-3 months earlier, and I said to, I was saying to her, you know, Mom, I said, I'm a complete unknown. I've had the opportunity to be interviewed by Al Warren, and that's pretty cool. But nobody else knows me, and I've never written a book before. And all of a sudden I hear this loud yelp coming from the guest bedroom where my wife and I were staying at her house. And out, my wife comes out, and she's holding her laptop, and she, I guess, was looking at her emails, and she says, Michael, you just won Best Indie Book Award for Best Crime Thriller for 2023. And I went, what?
Wow.
I said, what? I said, I didn't even know I was up for the award. And then about a month later, I'm sitting in a coffee shop, and again, my wife walks in, and she says, Michael, she says, I'm going to make your day. And I said, really? And she said, yep. She said, you just won the Feathered Quill for Best Suspense Novel for 2024. I went, holy crap. And then finally, the one that I'm actually the proudest of is I just got it end of last year, where I won Best Crime Thriller of the Year for Chasing Money.
Wow,
that's nice.
Fantastic. So how do you follow up with a success in the same, with you have the same people? Because I never did that. For me, it was just going from one story and book to the next years ago, and so this was a different scenario. You are taking your characters and putting them in book 2. So, what's on your mind, and what are you going to do with them to keep it exciting and fresh, and not repeat itself?
Right. That's a very important question, and it's also the one I struggle with the most. So, in Chasing Money, the main premise in Chasing Money was I wanted to put 2 very ordinary guys with families and wives and kids and dogs and everything else, and they're just average people. They're not ex-cops or ex-FBI people or what have you. They're just standard business guys, and put them in really dangerous situations. And that's what I did with the first one. And of course, the challenge you have with average guys is that you have to find kind of a rational or logical scenario for them to fall into that is equally or even potentially more dangerous. And that's not easy, because average guys don't do that. That's one of the reasons why most writers kind of create a character for their thriller series that it tends to be, in my opinion, somewhat cliche. They're always X something, military or whatever, because you can put those characters into dangerous situations all the time. So I fell on to my own personal history. The Vatican deal takes place in Rome. The entire book is basically 5 days in Rome. Earlier in my entrepreneurial career, I was very fortunate. I worked with the Vatican, and so I had a lot to draw on. And that's kind of where I went when it came to coming up with an idea that I could use. So I had this kind of interesting situation when I was young. Not young. I was middle-aged, actually. So I retired from Intel Corp and became an entrepreneur. And this was about late 1990s, early 2000s. And one of the very first companies that I invested in and ended up owning with my business partner was an art company. And the art company, it wasn't like a typical art company with galleries and things like that. It was actually a company that supplied art to fundraising charity auctions around the country. And so it grew and became quite successful. And but we were running out of art. And we were, supplying 200-300 charities a week. So you can imagine, you start sending sculpture art, for example, 200 or 300 a week, and art is not a commodity. It tends to be very limited edition only. You could see how we could quickly run out of art. And
you started stealing?
Yeah. So good. So what we did is we came up with this idea that we would go to some of the big museums in the world and ask them if we could replicate their art. And we started with the Vatican Museum, and then we went to the Uffizi, and we went to the Louvre, and we went to a bunch of other museums, not as well known. And surprisingly, they all said yes. But there was a caveat, and that is that, yes, you can absolutely replicate our art, but you can't touch it. So, okay, that makes it very problematic, right? And so, long story short, we were trying to figure our way around this, and we would go into art galleries or art stores, especially in Florence. And one of the things we noticed was that there were already bronze sculptures of some of the most famous pieces of art in the world, like the Pietà and David and Caesar and all of these great sculptures. And so we said, well, since you can't make molds of these pieces, how'd you get them? And they said, oh, well, we went to the Curazzi. And I said, you went to what? And it said, well, we went to the Curazzi foundry. So long story short, back in the early 1900s, before World War I, a lot of museums in Europe were kind of paranoid that they were going to have their precious art, their priceless art, destroyed, either in war or vandalism or fire or what have you. And so they went to the Curazzi foundry, which is the oldest or second oldest foundry in Italy, started in 1870, and they asked the foundry to make duplicates of their most precious pieces of art. And they did that as an insurance policy. They would basically then store it in their, in their vaults or in their basement storage rooms, what have you. And it was kind of a backup in case, a bomb ever fell on the museum. And the interesting part about that is we went to the Curazzi and talked to them, and the thing that turned out to be really fortuitous was that even though the museums had paid the foundry to make these replicas for them, they paid the Curazzi for it, and they never charged them for the molds. And so the Curazzi ended up with like 1,600 molds of all this priceless art.
Wow.
And this was the kicker, they were for sale, and we tried to buy it. And we got outbid. We didn't end up getting it, but we did end up for quite a number of years using and licensing the molds. And so we ended up being able to make a lot of art. A lot of what I just said found its way into the book, because I think I've always thought it was a fascinating story. Whenever I told people about doing this, they found it fascinating. And then in parallel with the foundry, we also negotiated with the Vatican a licensing deal that allowed us to have the licensing rights to the Vatican seal. I know that sounds crazy, but there was a 2-year period where my company owned the worldwide rights to the Vatican Library seal.
Wow. Was it because you asked to buy those molds that other people found out they were for sale, and then you lost out?
Yeah, it's actually a long story. I'll make it really, really short. I made the mistake of trusting a friend, and I told him about it, and I should not have, because all of a sudden, while we were negotiating the price for the Curazzi, suddenly the owner of the Curazzi, the son of the founder, very old man, said, "Oh, we have a new bid." And I said, "That's really weird. How'd you get a bid all of a sudden, coincidentally, at the same time I'm negotiating with you?" And it turns out it was the guy that I kind of whispered it to and I should not have done that. So we ended up losing it. Yeah. So
what's his name? We'll call them names on air.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you kill him off your book?
Yeah. Well, the point of the reason I'm telling you all that is because that actually happened. It's a real true story. And so I thought, as I started thinking about how do I put my 2 very average business guys into danger, I thought about that story and the fact that we had a lot of really interesting experiences in Italy. We spent tons of time at the Vatican. I got some of the best tours you can imagine. I met the ambassador, the American ambassador to the Vatican. We had dinner with him on several occasions. We ended up being invited to just incredible concerts. I sat behind the Pope in his Wednesday when he gives his Wednesday thing. I'm not Catholic, so unfortunately, I'm not using the right jargon here. But yeah, it was really an interesting experience. And I said to myself, now, okay, how do I take all of that really interesting stuff, and turn it into a thriller? And so that's when I threw in the fictional part, which was, what if my business guys were over there and they were trying to buy the foundry, which is a true story, and that they also tried to get the license for the Vatican seal, which was also a true story, but they find out that a mafia family out of Naples is trying to do the same thing for nefarious reasons, because they want to use the foundry to launder money. And I said, that's really interesting. I could do that. And then I kind of ratcheted up the tension by having one of my characters is Natalya, who is a girlfriend of a Russian oligarch who is the business partner for my two characters. That's how they get their money, and he kind of provides them with money to grow their company. And the mafia family that is trying to bid on the foundry gets kind of ticked off because my two characters won't back down, and so they kidnap the girlfriend, and now you end up having kind of a situation where you have the Italian mafia against the Russian mafia, and all kinds of mayhem happens. So
just think about two normal people that don't really have that kind of experience happen. How would they respond to that?
Carefully. It's actually something that I had to really work on. I gave my first manuscript of the second book to my editor, and wonderful woman, and she read it and she said, "Michael, your writing is wonderful. I have no criticisms about the writing. Unfortunately," she says, "you wrote a thriller that doesn't have a lot of thrills." I said, "What?" I said, I got the Italian mafia, I got the Russian mafia. They go to war with each other. My God." She goes, "Yeah, but," she said, "where are your characters in the middle of all of this? They kind of narrate it, but they don't really experience it." And so I kind of ended up taking another 5 months and rewriting the first draft, if you will, and kind of injecting my characters much more into the overall action.
And that's where you win, because the thing is, people always come back for the character. You know what I mean?
Yes, they do.
It's good that the more involvement they can get into it by the more things they do. So that's good, you know. So you didn't really have this in mind of where your character was going to end up, you know, both characters from the beginning to the end. You know what I mean? Like when you sit down to write Vatican Deal and you're getting these ideas and you have all these experiences, you weren't going, this is what I'm going to do with these guys. Like do you know what I'm saying? So how is it that you work on your characters themselves, or do you?
Well, I tend to kind of, I'm not a plotter. I'm not someone who outlines. I know kind of where I wanted to end. I knew that they were both going to survive. My two main characters, Marty and Bo, because it's a series. It's like watching. It's like watching a series on TV, right? I mean, we all have this, and you know, and the main character is in. It looks like they're going to die for sure, and you sit there and go, "What are you talking about? It's a series. They have to come back next week." So you kind of know.
Except Game of Thrones, they off everybody.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. So
even the dogs, it's terrible.
You know it. Sad.
Right.
Yeah.
So I knew that they, and I also knew that I wanted to, I needed to bring Natalya back. I needed to have her rescued because she'll play an important role in the third book. And so those are the kind of three things that I knew. There were three characters that were going to survive all, and then the rest I just kind of let go, and I just kind of allow my imagination to kind of take it. So
now it's a series, and you're obviously going to go more than book 2 here. You're going further, right?
Yes. I decided that the books it's their first person, past tense, and so they're kind of they're being narrated by Marty, and so I kind of decided that the series should be kind of this arc of Marty's, life, and they get, the first time you meet Marty, he's a struggling entrepreneur, trying desperately to keep his company alive, he and Bo, And by the second book, they are no longer chasing money. They've found money, lots of money. The twist at the end of, spoiler alert, the twist at the end of Chasing Money is that they end up partnering with the Russian oligarch who basically has been trying to kill them in the first book. So that's kind of the kind of odd twist at the end. And so by the time the second book opens, they have plenty of money. Their company is growing by leaps and bounds. And of course it's the how do I get them to Italy, right? And it's because actually their oligarch partner, silent partner, tells them that he wants them to go to Italy to buy this foundry. And they there's a lot of, why are we going to Italy to buy a foundry? This is so dumb. And of course, they find out during the course of the book that the oligarch has a ulterior motive. There's a main reason for him to want his partners to buy this foundry, because he can't buy it, and there's a reason for that. And there's again, I don't want to spoil it, but there's it's all kind of a game that the oligarch is making these guys play, and that is also kind of the underlying theme behind not just the mafia in Italy, but also what the oligarch is trying to do with the same kind of resources. So,
Are you happy with the way it turned out, as in with your characters?
yes, I'm very happy with it. The reviews have come in, or they're trickling in, and they are they're very good. I'm very pleased with that. You wrote a very nice one, I might add, so I'm very happy with that. God, talk about topical, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the Vatican deal. The two most popular words in the English language right now are Vatican and deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The only thing I could have done to
Right.
make it more topical is I could have called it the Vatican tariffs.
Yeah. the
That's right.
Vatican tariffs on Canada.
Yeah. Right.
You'll be flying off the shelf.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, but with that in mind, I know that it's come from your experiences, and that's kind of what led to the story. But did some sort of a meaning come out of this book? Is there something you wanted people to get out of the book? Maybe if it happened organically, even as you were putting it together. But was there something that does it mean something else beyond the entertainment?
I don't think it does, although you do bring up an interesting point, and that is that I found, not so much in the first book, but I definitely found it in the second book, and that is that I actually like writing more about the human condition than I do about the thriller stuff. I just love kind of fleshing out the personalities of the characters. There's also how do I say this without spoiling it? There's a romance that is in the second book, which was not in the first book at all. And I really enjoyed writing those scenes, and I enjoy writing the kind of internal thoughts that Marty has about why things are happening, and kind of, what's making this person tick, or why did this person say that, or whatever. And I enjoy the human aspect more than I enjoy writing kind of the bang up and bang and pow and what have you.
I was just curious about, now that's, if you enjoy that, that's the first. You said your editor kind of was your beta reader. Do you have others, like maybe someone like your wife or something that will help you with that part that you don't know you're good at yet?
Yes, my wife is actually my true beta reader. Even before I send it to an editor at Mission Point, before I send it to anyone, I let my wife read it, because I'm always afraid that I might send something out that is going to totally embarrass me. And so if I'm going to be embarrassed, I'll be embarrassed in front of my wife. There's lots of times where I've embarrassed myself in front of her, so it's okay. And so she reads everything, and she's a voracious reader. She doesn't like to watch TV. She reads books instead, and she'll go through about 2 or 3 books a week on average. So she's a really good voice for me. And the first time she read the first manuscript, she did say, she says it feels like it just it's missing something, Michael, and I'm not quite sure what it is, but you need to work on it a little. And then of course I sent it to the editor, and the editor kind of narrowed it down for me, and that it needed more thrills.
Wow.
Gotcha.
So that's fantastic. So Marty and Bo end up together.
Marty and yes, the romance is.
That's what I thought, and that's what you enjoy writing.
Yes. Well, okay. I guess I've just come out on the Al Warren show.
We're getting it all out now. That's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Can you keep that between us? Can you?
Yeah. We'll. No, don't worry. Nobody will hear.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good.
Not a person. But we've got your wife on the other line.
That's right.
So she has a few comments here. No, that's great. I mean, I'm glad everything's going for you. Now the book comes out tomorrow, which is like May 15th.
Yes.
And so there you go. You'll be number one in the Vatican.
Hope so. As I said, it's very topical, and yes, I'm fingers crossed that it does as well as the first one.
When you get into topical things like just even if it's not direct, but the Vatican, or you get into certain things that are going on, do you try to stay very neutral when you write it?
Yes, I do. I'm assuming you're talking like politics.
Well, yeah, and it doesn't even have to be direct politics like this and that, but just the way you present something, because sometimes we'll just say and do things how we feel like we're just joking around, like remember the plane from Cutter and stuff, but there's a way of, if you do something, just the way you sort of address it makes it sound like you're pushing for one thing or the other. Do you know what I mean?
Well, the dialogue between Marty and Bo, and it's one of the reasons I put two characters, even though it's narrated by Marty, Bo has an equal role in the book. And the reason for that is because one of the things that I enjoy writing more than anything else is dialogue between people. And there's an awful lot of snark that goes on between Marty and Bo. And so, in fact, a lot of the compliments that I got from Chasing Money was that they enjoyed the characters, and they thought that the dialogue was very realistic, and it's the way two guys talk to each other, kind of in real life, and so I got a lot of positive feedback. A lot of the reviews, for example, on Amazon for Chasing Money, etc., said that was something that they enjoyed reading. So there is a certain amount of kind of snark back and forth. I avoided kind of making, writing anything that's really kind of hardcore sexual, even though it has a romance in the book. I tend to stay away from stuff like that, mostly because I'm not very good at it. And politics, the book takes place in 2004, so doesn't really need to have an awful lot of politics involved. So,
right, and people won't know it.
So what I'm gathering is it's not going to be called 50 Shades of Vatican Deal. And...
No.
No. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
that's a separate book,
right?
That's
right.
And it's written under a different name.
Yeah. So, in fact, I'll tell you the absolutely true story. So, on my in my spare time, one of the things that I do is I volunteer bartend at the yacht club, and so I'm bartending one evening, and one of the members comes up to me at the bar, and he goes, Michael, I read Chasing Money. It's a good book. I like it. You know why I like it? I like it because it doesn't have any smut in it. And I said to myself, okay, remember that. No smut. Yeah. Stay away from the smut.
Well, everything that you do has a reaction. You know what I mean? It's right. Just, you want it to be something people will accept and keep using or keep doing, and not fighting it. That's all. But so it's interesting you have two main characters, because I understand this, but I wonder if you want to explain how this works for you. So you have two main characters, Marty and Bo, and Marty is the one that is doing the talking, so to speak.
Right.
It's the narrator.
He's the voice. Yeah.
Stuff like
He's the narrator.
Right. But they have a lot of dialogue, and they're very important to have both characters. They're important to each other. Like this is part of, it's a partnership, so to speak.
Right.
So how is it that you keep Bo equal to Marty, or how is it that you display that? Or is there a way you can without having it come from Bo's mind at any time?
Yeah, one of the I didn't realize it when I first wrote Chasing Money, in that I just decided to write Chasing Money with kind of these characters because I thought it would be cool to do that. It then there were some things that happened that were kind of fortuitous, decisions that I made with Chasing Money that turned out to be kind of fortuitous for the series. And that is that when you have two characters, it's easier to move the plot along because they can debate, or they can provide information that is critical. So, for example, one of the challenges you have with a first-person narrative is everything has to go through the eyes, ears of the narrator, right? Well,
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that happens that how does the narrator get this information? And there are times when I sit and think, okay, do I have to create a character now in order for that person to be able to narrate or explain to Marty why it is that this mafia family, for example, is motivated to do certain things? Because how else would Marty find out about this? And so having two characters, and then also just even developing other characters, allows me to kind of provide that I have more than one set of eyes and ears. I guess maybe that's the best way of putting it.
Yeah, because I think that's kind of the hard thing I notice in writing, to make it so it flows and it's understandable when you're having one point of view, but other people are important and are doing things in the story.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the most, I would say about 90% of both books have Marty and Bo in the same scene. They kind of bounce ideas or plot points back and forth. So they're kind of attached at the hip, if you will.
What's nice about that is, like, I got in trouble for head hopping. So I would be in the different characters' minds, and so my editor said, "You're getting the reader tired." So stick to one. So it sounds like that's what you're definitely doing.
Yes, I exactly. But as I said, God, how do I do this without spoiling too much? For example, Bo doesn't know that Marty's having an affair, and in the book. My wife's going to get very angry when she hears this, and she says, "You're spoiling all the good stuff." And so there's a conversation where Marty confesses to Bo, and Bo just goes ape because here's his best friend, and his best friend doesn't tell him that, he's fooling around with somebody else. But what it allowed me to do in that conversation is not just reveal a whole bunch of different priorities for each one of them, but also where kind of things get told that have up to that point been somewhat of a mystery to the reader.
It's fantastic. It's something you have to be aware of, or you think about as you're doing it. You
Right.
know what I mean? It's sort of, and then later you can write a series from in Bo's mind. What he was really thinking.
Oh, you know what? I would love to tell you how I plan to end the series, but I can't, because I swear if my wife finds out that I told this to you on a podcast, she would just kill me.
They're all going to end up dead, so it doesn't matter.
But yeah.
Who wears the Vatican outfit? Bo? Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll cut. So listen, let's talk about how people find you, and they do. So where do they want? Where do they go? Do they go to your website? Do they go social media? A lemonade stand? Like where do they find you?
So I am on almost all good lemonade stands.
Good.
Yes. I've bribed children to put my logo and my book, the picture of my book, on their little pitchers that they have the lemonade in. I'm also at every I'm at where all good books are sold. So obviously Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Powell's, and they all carry the books. I'm at a lot of the local northern Michigan bookstores. And it's because I'm, local. I have a website, mbalter.com, where it has a newsletter, and if you want to sign up there, and then you'll get a newsletter about what's going on and when the next book is coming out, and where I'm going to be signing and things of that nature. So yeah, those, and then of course I have, standard Facebook.
Listen, we got to wrap this up. Everyone, go out and buy the Vatican Deal. Of course, it's book 2 in the Marty and Bo thriller. A little bit of English in there. And Michael Balter, thank you.
Thank you very much, Al. I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you. And very, very nice meeting you, Michael. Hope to
you as well.
to meet you again.
Yeah, especially in Michigan. We'll be there.
Okay.
This has been a production of the House of Mystery Radio Show. To find out more about our show, guests, or hosts, go to our website at houseofmysteryradio.com.